is the factory that creates thoughts. Thoughts are subtle bundles of energy that impact our health, that determine our attitude, that create our feelings of happiness and distress. So, to be happy, to do better work, and to become better people, we must harbor better thoughts, which requires the purification of the mind. Hence, the need for mind management. In order to manage your mind, you need to understand the gap between the environment and your mind. Very often, when we are not aware of that gap, we feel controlled by circumstances. We think that circumstances are able to disturb us without realizing that in any circumstance, you have the choice to choose the thoughts as you wish. Take the example of Sant Tukaram. He was a great saint of Maharashtra. His wife had a terrible nature. She used to keep fighting with him. So Mahabharat would continue at home all the time. One day there was nothing at home. And Sant Tukaram was doing his bhajan, Rukmini Vitthal, Rukmini Vitthal, Rukmini Vitthal. The wife burst forth on him, "What are you doing? Go and sit in your shop, earn something, there is nothing to cook out here." So Sant Tukaram obeyed the high command and he went to the shop. Now he earned his daily income, purchased some groceries. When he was coming back, he found some beggars, he kept giving to them in charity. And when he reached home, he only had one ganna, one sugar cane. He told his wife, "This is all I have got today." She got so mad at him, she lifted it and hit it on his head. It broke into two. You see, she must have really hit it hard for it to break into two. So, Sant Tukaram was not ruffled by it. He said, "Oh, it's split. Never mind, you take one, I will take one." We had to break it. And then he went into his puja room and he said, "Oh, Rukmini Vitthal, you are so kind, so merciful. You have given me such a wife that I can never become attached to this world." You see, this is the positive nature. The positive nature is that I should not let the disturbance come into my mind. The external disturbances, see in them a blessing. Everything is happening for the good. So he is seeing in that situation the blessing of God. Consider this example. Suppose your boss asked you to report in his office at 8 a.m. for a work appraisal meeting, which you realized would be critical for you. And you at night, before going to sleep, set the alarm at 6:30 to wake up in time and get yourself in the proper zone before you report to your boss. But in the morning, the alarm refused to go off, and by the time you woke up, it was 7:15. Now that got you disturbed. When you rushed to the restroom, your spouse had already occupied it. You had to wait 10 minutes before you got your chance. Finally, when you had done your daily ablutions and you went to your garage for the vehicle, the fuel tank was empty because your child had emptied it without telling you. Now, by the time you refueled it and came to the road, you were already late. And then you got stuck in a rubberneck traffic jam. When you arrived in your boss's office, it was not 8 a.m., it was 9:25 a.m. And your boss gave you a piece of his mind in no uncertain tones, which really threw you off. And after the meeting, you were in a really bad mood. So this bad mood that you experienced, who was responsible for it? Was it the boss who shouted at you? Or was it the people on the roadside who caused the rubberneck traffic jam? Or was it your child who emptied your fuel tank? Or the spouse who kept the restroom occupied? Or the alarm clock which refused to ring? Ultimately, who is the culprit? The answer, I am sure you have guessed, is none of these. These are just external circumstances. The circumstances may be whatever. Your mood is always a choice that you make. And in any circumstance, you can choose to be happy. This is the gap between the circumstances and your thoughts. When we don't realize this gap, then we feel others are responsible for my negativity and my bitterness, etc., etc. Why are you feeling so down? It's all his fault, it is all her fault, it is all that person's fault. Look, circumstances will never always be positive. That is how the world is designed. It is planned out as the University of Hard Knocks. So difficult circumstances will always come your way. The question is, how do you choose to think when this happens? There is a beautiful expression of this presented by a person called Viktor Frankl. He was a Jew in Austria, and he was a practicing psychologist. However, when World War II broke out and the Nazis were rounding up the Jews and throwing them in concentration camps, Viktor Frankl, along with his family members and his brothers' families, all got thrown into the camps. He was separated from his wife and daughters and came to know later on they had died. He describes the horrors in the worst of those concentration camps, Auschwitz. He says they would make us live without clothes. They would whip us. They would make us do the worst menial work. We would not know whether we'd stay alive in the morning or not. And yet, in the midst of those circumstances, he realized he had one freedom that nobody could snatch from him. The freedom to choose his thoughts. So he decided to exercise it and to be happy. He could be seen smiling or even laughing, and he was obviously cheerful. The guards looked at him and said, "Why are you so happy?" He would say, "My choice." He continued to live through that ordeal while so many people there died. He said, "This secret I will share with the whole world when this is over." And finally, when he was released, he went to live in Israel and he wrote his book, The Search for Man's Meaning in Life. He says there are times when life tests us, when difficult circumstances come to us. The question is, how will you choose to respond at that time? He was awarded accolades in all the 5 continents. His book was translated around the world, and he was a living example that no matter how difficult situations may become, you are free to be happy. It's the choice that you make. And that choice exists because of the gap between the circumstances and your mind. Take a look at the saints in this world. Surdas, Tulsidas, Mirabai, Tukaram, Narsi Mehta, did they have an easy life? Of course not. They were socially oppressed. Many of them were exceedingly poor. They had family difficulties or physical handicaps. And yet they chose to always harbor loving and positive thoughts. But unfortunately, the vast majority of humankind does not understand that there is a gap between situations and the choice of thoughts that we make. And without this awareness, they become like slot machines. A slot machine? What kind of an analogy is that? Yes, because a slot machine doesn't respond, it reacts. You put a penny in it, it will react. Likewise, you behave like this, they will react. You behave like that, they will react. Whereas those who are mature, they say, we will not react, we will respond. Situations may become difficult. Life can serve us with lemons. But when it does, whether you wish to become bitter about it or to make a lemonade out of it, is the choice that you are responsible for. So we are responsible for our own thoughts. What is responsibility? The ability to respond. Those who don't understand this are the reactive people. They don't feel they are responsible for their moods or their thoughts, and that's why they indulge in the blame game. You ask them, why are you so upset? Are Swamiji, my Nanad behaved with me like this, why will I not be upset? Why are you so down? My boss scolded me, I have to be down, I don't have a choice. Why are you such and such kind of a person? That is the way I am. It's not my responsibility. Somehow, destiny or God or somebody has made me like this. That is the way I am. Whereas the proactive person will say, yes, whether I am good or I am bad, it is my responsibility. I made choices along the line which resulted in where I have reached today. And now I'll have to make different choices to become a better person and have a better future ahead of me. So these then are the proactive people. You will see a difference in the language between the proactive and the reactive people. The reactive people will say, I don't feel any love for my spouse. My love has gone down. So, What should Swamiji do? No, I am waiting for the love to come back up again. So they believe love will happen to me and then I'll fall out of it, without realizing they too have a responsibility. Love is not something that happens. Love is a verb where you choose to think well about others. You choose to be a good finder. You choose to have loving thoughts. Likewise in devotion as well, they will say. Nowadays I don't feel much devotion to God and Guru. So, what is Swamiji supposed to do? Give you an injection? So, they are riding the waves of their feelings. Now, the feelings are on a roller coaster because they are created by the mind. And if you don't take charge of your mind, the mind will become your worst enemy. Look at the saints. The torment that Prahlad had to face, that Tulsidas had to face, people tried to kill them. And yet, they did not become bitter lemons. They were always blissful in consciousness of God. So, if we wish to progress further in the science of mind management, it can only happen when you make a decision that the state of my mind, I alone am responsible for it. And I need to start changing the thoughts that I harbor. If I am unhappy, I am responsible for it, period.